In today's video, we're going to be talking about the ups and downs of Zamorak's release 5 days after release. This is something I thought would be fun to do, and I may continue doing videos like this in the future for big updates, talking about the good and the bad, because let's be honest, every update has very good things about it and things that need to be changed, and in this video I'm going to talk about my opinion on those, and also talk about some changes that we have confirmed are coming for Zamorak on Monday, and changes, hotfixes that have already happened. So if you like videos like this, make sure to subscribe, as 70% of you actually aren't subscribed, so make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're getting super close to 30k. Like the video if you like this concept, and I'll do it for more things, and let's get into it. So some of the ups from Zamorak's release is the boss fight itself. The boss fight itself, in my opinion, is really fun without being overly difficult at first. So basically, even if you're not the best PVMer, if you have a team of people, you can go in and get through this boss fight. You don't unlock a new phase, the final phase, until 100% in Rage. So if you're doing normal mode or something like that, most people can get through it. You may have trouble at first, but it's not something that you're just going to get absolutely destroyed. I had a much easier time doing Zamorak than I did on Raksha release. So in that case, it was really nice and seemed pretty accessible to people. The boss fight was, in my opinion, super fun. Everyone can change how they do it because there's different edicts. You can do things in a different order, so each team can go differently depending on, their strategy. It was really fun, and it made for a lot of brainstorming of strategies and different things to do, and all around was just amazing in my opinion. Now, speaking of downs, one of the downsides I feel like of this release was the elite dungeon and having to do it to kill the boss so many times. I know this was complained by a lot of people, but you had to go through the elite dungeon 25 times to be able to finally just farm the boss. Now, I'm all fine with this if that's what's intended, but the fact that they gave you this option is kind of weird. I feel like they should have some sort of incentive, like, okay, if you do the elite dungeon, you can maybe get a higher drop rate on uniques, but it seems as of now, it's just basically the elite dungeon is something you're kind of forced to do. You get a little extra loot from going through the dungeon, but it takes forever. The monsters, keep getting higher and higher health the more in rage you go up, and it seems like just an unnecessary block to be able to do the boss, which is what everyone really likes. If this was something like Ambassador where you had to do the elite dungeon to fight the boss, I would understand, or if there was some incentive to do the elite dungeon, but like I said, as of now, it just seems like there's no incentive. Now, it could turn out that you do get an increased rate by doing the elite dungeon. I couldn't find confirmation of this anywhere, but that kind of has me worried as well. So if they balance the drop rates based on the elite dungeon itself, let's say they're thinking people are going to spend 30-40 minutes in the elite dungeon, 5 minutes killing Zamorak, 45 minutes per kill, and they made the drop rate around that, I feel like the items are going to drop massively in price once everyone finally gets, their 25 kills and can just skip straight to the boss, that the drops will be coming out super fast. So one thing I hope they did was balance the drop rates right, so once everybody starts farming the boss, the items don't just plummet in price. A good thing about this update, and another up, is basically the Zamorak high scores in race. I thought it was an awesome thing, seeing content creators and streamers and different people go and try to race up the leaderboards for solo, duo, trio, 4-man, 5-man was really fun. And if you yourself were soloing or trying to push in Rage, it kind of gave you a little motivation to see where you're ranked on the high scores and stuff like that. So I thought that was really fun and a really cool and interactive thing that Jagex did, and I really like these Zamorak high scores. Jagex, can we get a high scores for other bosses that have Enraged, like Archglacior and Telos, or can we get a boss high scores in general, like old school RuneScape has for all the bosses? Come on, we should definitely have a boss high scores by now. This was a great proof of concept, and I hope they do this with all the bosses in the game, or at least the ones within rage. Now, something else about the dungeon that was very disappointing and definitely a down for me is the bosses, or I guess they're not even bosses, they're mini bosses. So for the Zamorak Elite Dungeon, there aren't actually any bosses on the boss log like the other Elite Dungeons. So in ED1, you have the Sanctum Guardian and you have Masuda, and those actually you could figure out a way to kill them pretty fast. Like the Sanctum Guardian, some people could kill it in like 40 seconds. But in this Elite Dungeon, where there weren't supposed to be any bosses, just little mini bosses, the mini bosses actually end up taking longer and being kind of more annoying than the actual bosses in the other dungeons. So for instance, you have the jailer who teleports around. You have to run around the dungeon a bunch, deal some damage to him, he'll teleport, summon minions, run around again. This ends up taking like 5 or 10 minutes, and it's the same with the other mini boss where you go into the room and the mini boss comes and summons demons. It's time gated, it acts like a complete boss, but it's not a boss. It ends up taking like as long as Masuda or other Elite Dungeon bosses, maybe even longer, but again, it's not an actual boss. You don't really get anything exciting. Not to mention in this room, it's kind of very buggy. Like it was super laggy here. I don't know why. I heard a lot of other people complain about it, but whenever you would run or walk around, it would really lag you. The click box for the portal to start the fight is absolutely huge, so sometimes I would accidentally start the fight when I didn't want to. So I found the mini bosses of this dungeon definitely being probably the worst part of it. I wish they would have either not done any of these, made them a little better, or just put in full-fledged bosses before Zamorak like the other Elite Dungeons, because maybe if you put in those and you gave them some decent drops, it might encourage people to actually run the Elite Dungeon. But now, anytime anybody gets a skip and doesn't have to run the Elite Dungeon, nobody is going to want to do this Elite Dungeon. So something else I wanted to talk about was Mod Breezy actually tweeted out about hotfixes that were done this week, and also updates to Zamorak that are going to be happening in the patch notes Monday. So it seems like there are a lot of changes coming, so I wanted to talk about these here. So the first thing is mobs inside the Zamorakian Undercity have had their health pools adjusted, or will have their health pools adjusted. They'll start with lower base HP but scale slightly harder. This will mean less HP needs to be dealt with at all in rages, with normal mode being greatest affected, and they've slightly changed the number of mobs on some of the dungeon gates, in particular slightly reducing the number of demons needed to kill at lower in rages, which is interesting. It makes lower in rage easy, but the thing still remains for me, why would you ever want to go and do the high in rage dungeons? I just don't see why you'd ever want to go and run the Elite Dungeon at 500% in rage, but maybe we'll figure out something later, some benefit to it. It looks like they're going to address a safe spot with the ritual leader, which will make it so you can't just safe spot her spiked floor traps, which I guess isn't intended, but that'll make the boss still more annoying. I'm just not a real big fan of those. But they also are making changes to the Chaos Roar ability, which I'm not going to get too into here because I haven't tested it or anything like that, but it looks like some decent changes to maybe make it a little bit better. It looks like they like buffed it and nerfed it in a way, so we'll have to see how good that is in the future. Thank goodness, it looks like they are reducing the size of the portal click box within the Zamorak Undercity Cathedral, so we won't have the annoying misclicks that we were getting before. They're going to prevent an issue that allowed players who died to be pulled into phase 7 while they were in the Zamorakian Undercity as their teammates transitioned into the Infernus. So I did not get that glitch, but I guess they're fixing a few glitches here. They're updating quick chats. They're fixing an issue with Flames of Zamorak attacks spawning in incorrect locations. Looks like they're fixing some typos, some graphical issues, stuff like that. Now we're going to go into what they actually have already changed. They've already hotfixed. So it looks like story mode damage reduction wasn't working before, so it's a 90% damage reduction compared to normal mode, so they fixed that. They reduced the HP scaling of mobs by 66% in enraged mode, which we could really tell because when you first did the dungeon on release, it would scale huge, and they reduced that quite a bit, so at least that's pretty nice. Looks like a lot of small things here. They did fix an issue that was causing hellhounds to drop clue scrolls at an unintentionally high rate, which I remember seeing my friends tell me about that the hellhounds would just drop clue scrolls, you know, every single time, which Obviously wasn't intended, but kind of a funny thing there. But seems like they're fixing a decent amount of stuff, a lot of, you know, smaller issues, quality of life issues. They did mess with some of the scaling, but the main issue I want to know if it's going to be addressed, or if it should be addressed, is basically the elite dungeon being dead content. Because once everyone does their 25 runs, it doesn't seem like there's any reason at all to do the elite dungeon at higher enrages, to, you know, go and continue doing the elite dungeon even at lower enrages, and especially not at higher enrages, because I saw people looking at the elite dungeon at like 500-600% enrage, and the monsters had so much health. So if you're gonna go and take your time and kill all those, you know, extremely powerful monsters, you'd think you'd want some sort of reward that's more than like 6 or 7 mil GP for spending an hour doing that. So I hope there's some sort of way that they address this to let us know, is the elite dungeon worth doing after you get your 25 kills, or is it just, you know, something you want to do for a little bit of extra loot or the slivers, and kind of going to be dead content after that. But yeah, I'll keep you guys updated on all the Zamorak changes. I'm really enjoying this release, and I thought it for the most part was really good. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, I know this one was more of one that you kind of listened to, but I wanted to get it out there. So if you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like. It helps get the video out to more people, and I will see you all in the next one.